Hey, everyone, here at the Investing Stuff You Should Know podcast, where we bring you expert insights into the world of investing and beyond. My name is Johnny Nelson, and today we're thrilled to have Brian Green as our special guest. Brian comes to us from upstate New York, and he will share his story of investing, real estate, starting stores, raising a family, and a bunch of other cool things. So, Brian, thanks for being with us today, man.
Thank you, Johnny, so much for having me.
Amazing, man. Amazing. So, tell the folks where you're from. I know you said upstate New York, but a little more specificity, and we'll just kind of just take from there.
Sure. So I'm in Saratoga Springs, New York, so about 3 hours north of New York City. It's just south of Lake George and a little bit north of Albany, if that gives you some geography.
Anyone that's from the Northeast, I'm sure that they recognize the area and where that is. What kind of winters? So I'm in Minneapolis, Minnesota, Brian. What kind of
Mhm.
winters? I think I'm imagining they're fairly harsh. I was working with a colleague up there in Rochester, up somewhere in upper New York area. What kind of winters do you got up there?
Probably similar to what you have in Minnesota. So we are,
Terrible, too long, and too much snow.
yeah, cold and dark and all those things. So we're a little bit further east though than Rochester, so we don't get heavy amounts of lake effect snow like they might. So here it's more, we do get snow, but it's more just cold and dark and like I said, probably similar to Minnesota. So it's a breath of fresh air once spring comes, and now that we're moving into summer, I imagine you would agree with, in your part of the world, it's kind of the same feeling.
It is. It's exciting to see summer and see grass and grass growing and trees, trees flowering or getting their leaves and flowers flowering, if that's a word. Awesome,
Yeah.
man. So let's talk about so we're gonna just drop right into the business side of this for the folks here, Brian. You founded a chain of retail stores back in '03, and then you exited that building or that business.
Mhm.
Give us some insights on how you got into the retail space and then how you grew it and the things that you learned there. I know it's like a lot of stuff there, but just kind of gives a little bit of history there because I think that always influences how we see things today. And then of course you're on a real estate path, more focused in the real estate, the building and the assets versus the businesses inside of the buildings. But give us a little insight there.
Sure, sure. So, like you said, I started right out of college. We kind of were working for a paging company in the late '90s that turned into one of the earliest cell phone stores in the market. So I started working part time in that business, and then eventually, once I graduated from school, the boss I had in the paging store, he turned into kind of my mentor and my angel investor, and helped me get a contract with Verizon Wireless and to go off on my own to start off my own first store. From there, the business kind of snowballed, where it was this was like the peak cell phone time, right, where everyone was just getting their first phone. This was a big deal for everyone. Now it
Blue
seems like
blue
that's
ocean. It's like it was unsaturated.
yeah.
Like think of the potential, right?
Yeah. Now it seems like that's 100 years ago, but back then nobody had their own phone. We kind of hit it at the right time, and so one store turned into three and five, and eventually I built it up to 23 stores. And then retracted back a little bit as the market matured, back down to 15. And then at that point in 2014, I was approached by a company from the West Coast that owned hundreds of stores across the country, and they made an offer I couldn't refuse, and then that's where we got the exit.
That's amazing, man. Can you talk to us a little bit? Maybe you've seen this. If you have other other insights, and maybe you've seen other people on this path. I like that idea, or the thing that you mentioned was having a mentor, maybe even a investor at the beginning. How do you
Mhm.
find what kind of person you need to be that your boss sees something special in you, and how do you know when that person is there? Because we have lots of people have bosses, lots of people have just an older a mentor, someone that's been around the block, but you never know when something's going to click or when you can approach that or when you might draw that out of somebody. Like maybe they don't even know that they're a mentor, or that they're an entrepreneur themselves, and like, hey, what does this look like for us? I'm a young hustler doing my first thing, but they can see something in you. Talk to us on both sides of that.
Yeah, so in my experience, before I had gotten to meet this gentleman, my brother had done the same. So my brother's a couple years older than me, and this gentleman had come to our school. We both were in college playing college football, and this gentleman came in looking for somebody to help with part-time summer work. And at the time, the only one in the whole room, there's 80 guys on the team that volunteered to work, was my brother. So he started working like at fairs and stuff. Like back then, like you'd go to like fairs and set up a table and like show people what phones are and how to use them. This is so early that nobody even, I mean, it's like a trade show almost. Like you would never do that now, but back then it made sense. So he started working for this gentleman, and maybe a year or two after that, I started doing the same. So he kind of laid the groundwork for me and built that relationship. And he had a similar situation where he ended up having the same gentleman mentored him. So I think at some level I was just kind of following on the coattails. So like I got a job originally because he's my brother and he needed help. But then
Sure.
over time I kind of proved myself as well. And then that mentor kind of offered me the same opportunity that he offered him. And we kind of went forward from there. But it was just happenstance. I mean, it was, hey, who wants to work for the summer? And somebody raises their hand, and then I get a job because I'm related. And then I kind of prove myself in the stores. And then you kind of just, it just happened organically, I
Yeah,
think.
but I think there's something there. Not to downplay it too bad. At least from your perspective, it's like it's modest. Like, oh, it kind of happened. But also,
Yeah.
like, you have to prove yourself. Like you said, you have to prove yourself. And there's something there that somebody sees. Like, hey, I think this guy or gal could go somewhere and do
Mhm.
something. For me, obviously, it's someone selfishly motivated because like, hey, they could do work for me. But also, so what is that? What kind of like just doing stuff and proving yourself? What does that mean
I
for a
think some
younger
of
a
it
younger
is,
person?
well, obviously it's competency, right? You have to show a skill set that could be molded into something bigger.
Yeah,
But a lot of it is also trust, right? Like if that person, that mentor, in whatever capacity it's going to be, is going to not only commit money, but time, more importantly, and resources to developing you as a younger entrepreneur,
yeah.
and be worth their time, right? So I think there's a lot of boxes you need to check, but it's that my experience allowed me to do that because I was working in a capacity where we could kind of get to know each other better, without him
Yeah.
having, it's not like, hey, can you go out and get coffee with me? And then, hey, day two, can you be my mentor? Day three, can you be my angel investor? Now, it doesn't work that way. I don't know where that might work. But I feel like a lot of times in like, when I hear interviews, people ask about mentors, or they ask me like, how do you find a mentor? It's like, you can't, like, if you're going out to search for the mentor, it's probably a more difficult process than if it just
Yes.
happens organically. So I think, we had the capacity where I could kind of show myself and prove myself, and we could get to know each other better before we took that step.
Yeah. And take it to today. And of course, I don't get too far off on the mentoring thing, but it's important because people are looking for mentoring and coaching, and could be younger, could be midlife or older. There's just people need the information and knowledge and confidence from all kinds of places. Do you have anyone now, Brian? If I could ask you a personal question, do you have anyone now that you're kind of mentoring and coaching within the real estate? I know we are more focused within the real estate space. Do you have a person or two that you're kind of guiding and helping right now?
I feel like, not in a formal capacity,
Sure.
which may be the case in a lot of mentorship situations. But I feel like, as we grow our company,
Yeah.
some of these people that are coming on to join our team, they're doing it not as employees, but they're doing it as independent contractors. And a lot of times, the value proposition that we're providing is not only the vision we have for our company, but it's also the opportunity for them to learn more about real estate, because they're going to be working with, myself and my brother, who's my partner,
Yeah.
uh, on kind of an intimate level, right?
Yeah.
It's not only like, here's the upside, here's the compensation package, like all that stuff matters, but also you have the opportunity whenever you have a question on real estate, where you can learn as much as we can provide to you in knowledge. Because a lot of them that are coming in, they kind of want to build up their own investment
Yeah.
portfolio at the same time. So it gives them that kind of resource in an informal way.
So then, and then the message then to the audience, if you're maybe it doesn't like again wherever you are in life, but someone that wants to learn the real estate space, the real estate game, then look for that opportunity, and then this is a kind of essentially relationship that you could form with a solid team like Brian and his brother, from Green Springs Capital Group, and that might be how you get the chops and the knowledge and the skill set and the confidence to then go do it on your own. So I think that's important. I think it's important, like, because people are reaching out and asking me. I'm sure they ask you this, that, and the other. There's a lot of people out there. Like, how do I get into the space, into the game? What do I do? And I think this is a method. This is one way of doing it. I think it's important for people to be aware of how on a couple. Oftentimes, this can go down.
Yeah, I think it's important that the value proposition has to be a two-way street.
Go
Yes,
with that
I
too.
want.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, I want to help you, and I can do whatever I can within the capacity that this is going to advance your own investment knowledge or your own real estate career. But at the same time, it works better if there's value coming the other way too. So, like in the example that I described to you, these people are deciding to come on as team members, right? So they're contributing to our company while I'm also providing them as mentorship. So that's what I mean by the value has to kind of go both ways, I think, for the mentorship to work.
Amazing. Awesome, man. Well, that's an awesome place to then pivot toward kind of the things you're doing now to share with the audience. And like you said, you're in upstate New York. Investors that are, maybe more national, they're like, oh, I'm looking in like the growth markets of Texas or
Yeah,
Florida or Arizona. They're not necessarily thinking of New York, but New York or real estate is very local, as we both know. And obviously,
sure.
you're having success and finding, success in business and real estate in your area. So, what are the things you're doing to have that success within your area? And just kind of walk us through that path. I think you're a broker, and you're doing, like you said, you're doing STRs and development. Walk us, kind of just give us a timeline there of what you've done and where you are now.
Sure. So just to speak to the market for a minute, I kind of love the fact that we're in the boring, stable market.
Yes.
So we have zero volatility. Our industry here is anchored by things that are very sticky: universities, state government, hospitals, medical facilities, and then we also have private industry, in the market as well. So we have that kind of multi-tiered, a little bit more than tripod, maybe 5 or 6 different economic drivers here that are very stable. When somebody else might go up 20% one year and down 5%, then up 10, and then down 10, we're consistently up 5% every single year. And if
Yeah.
you stack those fives on top of each other over 10 years, that's better than 1 year of 20 and then minus 10. You know what I mean? If you take the volatility out of it, it's much smoother. Um, Speaking to what we're involved in real estate now, our primary focus is on development. So we are looking to redevelop existing multifamily properties and also ground up development of new multifamily communities. And I say redevelopment because it's not really the old traditional value add strategy. I feel like our business model is more attuned to completely repurposing a building and kind of changing the market profile for it. So
Awesome. Yeah.
think of like a 1970s apartment building. If we go in and rehab a building like that, our team does, and we spend 30 to $50,000 per unit to do so. Like I tend to categorize that a little bit different than the traditional value add, where you're just going to go in and put in counters and paint, and now you're going to increase the rent. We're completely changing the profile of the tenants that are going to be in the building, and a lot of these buildings just haven't been attended to for decades. So we're the ones that are going to go in and kind of bring it up to market.
That's awesome, man. And what would you have you given that kind of twist on the quote value add proposition? Have you given that a name that you like to kind of categorize what you're doing that's kind of distinguished from what everyone else is doing?
I just call it redevelopment instead of
Just
value.
redevelopment. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because it's more than value add.
Yeah. No, I like that. Um, but so then talk to us again. We skipped a large chasm of all the different cool things you're doing. So
Yeah,
yes, selling, probably you've sold homes before, and then of course you're doing development now, but all kind of within that space too, of all the different areas you're finding success in within the real estate, again in the local market. Give us list out a few other things that you're finding success in.
sure. So I said primarily our focus is on development, but the back end of that is we own our own property management company. So we're constantly building out that team and refining
Yeah.
our systems and processes that are involved in that management. And I feel like that having our own management team gives us a strategic advantage in the marketplace, both from a competitive situation when we're competing against other buildings for potential residents, as well as kind of uniquely defining the space that we're playing in when we're working with investors that might be coming in on some of our syndications, because we have that kind of vertical integration where we're the developer. We have a lot of our own contractors on staff. We have our own management team. We have the flexibility, as you mentioned, that in a lot of our properties we're doing short-term rentals as well. So we have like a multifaceted approach to this, and I think that uniqueness gives us a competitive advantage in a lot of different ways.
I like that, man. And
Yeah.
how has been, so you said that you have contractors on staff. Is that is that like just your like go-to subs, or like in-house contractors, and how did that develop if that's the case?
Yeah. So we're doing both kind of strategies. So
Yeah.
we have select contractors that work exclusively for us. They're still
Oh wow.
they're still 1099s, but they're doing renovation work for us.
Yeah.
And that's our core group. But their capacity is limited by the number of them. So we're kind of supplementing what they do with a myriad of different subcontractors on specific depending on if it's roofing or flooring or landscaping. Some of the things that are very niche, we're still using subcontractors for. But we like this approach because it gives us more control over the product.
Yeah.
When we have contractors that are only focused on our projects, they're not worried about finishing and giving on to somebody else's project. Then we can kind of get a little bit more flexibility in the way that they renovate our buildings. So they specifically focus on the redevelopment side of our business. If we're doing ground up development, those are bigger projects, and we're basically going to outsource the entire thing to subcontractors. And we're either going to GC it ourselves. My brother, again, he's my partner. He's our general contractor. And if the project maybe is outside of the scope of what we can do internally, then we'll go outside and hire a third party general contractor that has more experience in that type of property.
Yeah, and that philosophy is so aligned because like you said, that consistent, like being where you are in the market, and then providing consistent rent growth, and also provide you consistent like predictable outcome versus like, oh, the contractors got busy
Mhm.
and the capex, the deep capex, the rehab was delayed 6 months because we can't get the guy to hang the cabinets, and can't get the guy to paint the this and hang the
Yeah.
do the doors, all that kind of stuff. So again, like this philosophy you have in your area, that it's kind of, I like that alignment of where you are, how you think, and then also that you have, like you said, you have the 1099 contractors on staff more or less, and then they do what you guys need more or less when you need it. So I love
Yeah.
that.
And back to the point where we talked about like the mentorship, how the value has to go both ways. With our contractors, it kind of works the same way. So
Oh yeah.
we get the consistency, high level production, and control of the product and the work quality. They on their end get the certainty of work, right? They don't have to go out and shop themselves for the next job. They don't have to go out and constantly sell themselves. They're going to move from one of our projects to the next project, to the next project, and they know that they're going to get paid every month, no matter what.
Yeah,
So that value stream is again working both ways, and I think that's why it works.
I like that, man. Yeah, I used to be a general contractor back, and my family still has a contracting company in Alaska. So yeah, lots of time spent doing the projects, but also out there hunting, hunting for the next project, and
Yep.
talking to customers and all these things. So that's a lot of work too. So that consistency is very appealing to a carpenter, a roofer, a contractor, whatever role they're doing. That's very, very appealing. I talked to us a little bit, Brian, on the development side. So, many people have done, or are doing the, value add, the redevelopment, like you go a little deeper on. On the new
Mhm.
side, what metrics have you seen that have made that attractive? And then what particular projects have you done or are doing now?
So on the redevelopment side, the metrics that we look at there, and my background is operations, finance, that kind of world. Probably stemming from the operations of the stores that we used to own and manage.
Yeah, makes a lot
For
of sense.
me, yeah, for me, I need it to make sense on paper. I need the math to make sense. So I lean into the math before we get into anything. So when I'm looking at analyzing a property, realizing that I want to, build a company that has 1,000 units, give or take, over the next decade. The only way we're going to get that kind of explosive growth and be able to keep, you know, investing in a new property, redeveloping it, pulling our capital out, going into the next one, for lack of a better term, burying the properties back to ourselves so that
Yes.
we can keep redeploying the same capital.
Yeah.
The only way to do that is to get to buy product that you can increase the value to such an extent that you can regain your capital when you refinance. So that led us to redevelopment because it's very hard to go buy a Class A brand new property that's going to give you 5% cash flow. I mean,
Right.
that's fine in an investment for certain people and certain philosophies. But if I do that, it's going to, where you're basically parking your money there for the next 10 years and you can't use it anywhere else. So, the only way to find that chasm where I can push the value on the property to a certain extent that we can get our money back out is to do major redevelopment where, we're going to push the value of the building from $1 million to $2.5 million within 12 months through forced depreciation. So then we can pull off our own capital. We can use that capital again on the next project, and we kind of rinse, repeat, and it just keeps snowballing. Now, the ground up development, that was kind of born out of the concept that the last maybe 24 months, where values were elevated, it was very hard for us to find a property that was existing and in place that made sense on paper, just because the cost of the product was too high, labor and materials were too high for our redevelopment. So we ended up not buying a whole lot in the last year. So instead, I said, okay, well, if it's cheaper to build it than it is to buy it and fix it, then we should
Yeah.
go on that path. So that led us to development, which I think in retrospect was great, because now that we have the skill set to do development as well as redevelopment, we have kind of this two-pronged approach, and we can kind of weather the market fluctuations and lean into whatever side makes the most financial sense in that given time period. And in that way, we can kind of get to our goals much faster.
I like that, man. That is so, just kind of like you saw the opportunity, you leaned into it, and then you maybe look back and you're like, holy smokes, wait, now we have we developed another, not just the ability to do it, but another skill set. And then maybe that actually can actually give our company greater staying power. And like you said, depending on market conditions, which sometimes make it, make existing product very attractive. Sometimes it can make new product very attractive. So, that bolsters that and gives you, makes you anti-fragile, more robust,
Yeah, yeah. And to that point too, a little bit more, because you're in a similar market in Minnesota that we are in New York, with some, let's say, pretty stringent landlord tenant laws.
Yes.
So
In other words, very favorable to the tenant.
yeah,
Let's
that's
say
right.
that very straightforwardly.
So I like that it's also a kind of a hedge against those laws here becoming more advantageous to the tenants, because if we're doing ground up development, there is no set rent amount until we create it. So
Yes.
any type of rent control or regulations on increasing rents kind of goes to the wayside because there isn't any in place now.
Yeah.
So, if those laws become even more difficult to kind of navigate around, we can kind of, again, lean more into the ground up development where we can control that outcome versus doing more redevelopment.
Awesome, man. Yeah. And is there a certain point? This is kind of just general knowledge for me and anyone else listening, if they're curious. If you do like a major redevelopment, like you said, on a 70s product, are you able to then reset, depending on like the depth of the rehab or the redevelopment, are you able to reset the rent because like so much of the building was brand new and repurposed, or no, it's still this the old rent rate still sticky, or are they still there?
That's a question to be determined. So at
Oh,
this point, still, and only because in New York, outside of New York City, there's still to this point is not rent control.
yeah,
So we're still able to go in and push rents to whatever extent we want to, in line with what the market will pay for that redevelopment. But yes, if we have new legislation that comes down, that most of what I've seen from across the country, and maybe in Minnesota, it's the same. If you go in and you're doing a certain level of renovation to the units, they'll allow for you to kind of turn over the tenant base and reset the market, because there's an understanding that some of these old buildings just need that level of work, and
yeah,
nobody's ever going to buy it if you can only increase the rent 5% from a depressed value going into it. So wishful thinking and hopeful thinking that if New York State goes down that line, that they're smart enough to figure that out, that they still
yes.
need helpers to redevelop old buildings, but to be determined.
Awesome, man. Awesome. What are you a reader? Do you like to read, or maybe a podcast or a audible guy?
Yeah, I read constantly, so
Awesome, man. Give
I
us
try.
give us
Go ahead.
the two latest books that you've enjoyed. Well, it could be the last two, just for memory's sake, because I sprung the question on you, or the last, like, when the last 6 months you've actually enjoyed. I go through a lot of books. I'm an Audible guy, and
Yep.
sometimes they're just not sticking with it. It's like, I'm just not feeling this. I just kind of like not bring me down. I need inspiration, or I need like motivation, or I need like technical focus. I don't know, whatever it is, whatever has kind of resonated with you in the last
Sure.
6 months. Share, if you could share that with the audience, I'd love that.
Sure. So two different ones. One is, and please don't ask me the author's name because
I
I'm
won't.
terrible remembering names, but the
People
two
can figure out
titles,
how to use Google.
yeah, the two titles I'll give you. The first one was Comfort Crisis. I don't know if you read that or not, but a lot of it
No.
is um, physically and mentally challenging yourself
Yeah,
on a daily basis to kind of make yourself mentally and physically stronger.
I
Um,
like that. I
they
like
talk
that.
about, he talks about this Japanese term called misogi, which is, you're supposed to have a challenge every year. This is usually like a physical challenge. Like, and he gives an example back to your Alaska reference before, where these guys went out to Alaska and we're going to live in the wilderness for 30 days, right? With nothing besides what they can carry in. So the point of the misogi, though, is to kind of free your mind, go out and challenge yourself emotionally and physically. But the caveat is it can't be life threatening. So you can't go overboard. But that book is really good. I think I like that a lot because I try to do that to myself to a lesser extent.
Yeah.
Just through exercise and training, I'm pretty avid into CrossFit. So I like that stress yourself every day type of mentality.
I so resonate with it, man, because like and I try to like get my metabolism or like sweat every day. And my wife and I are both into this, and like we have to make ourselves uncomfortable for that because we sit in front of a computer, blah blah blah, and we
Yep.
have to make ourselves like it sucks. Like I do not like running, but I go running or to lift weights. Like it is not pleasant. That's not a pleasant part of my day. But like
Yeah.
this body needs this discomfort to like to sustain health and vitality. But so I
Yeah.
so resonate with that. Of course, what you're saying is a little more a little more, a bit more of an investment of time and investment of focus, but
Mhm.
still you could have that same concept shrunk down to the daily. So, but please
Yeah.
continue.
Yeah, yeah. And then the second one I'll give you is I'm actually two-thirds of the way through now, but it's really great. It's been recommended to me by a number of different people. I just have never got around to it, but it's called The Wealthy Gardener.
Oh yeah.
Um,
Oh dude,
yeah,
that's such a I love that book. Yeah.
Wealthy Gardener is more of a mindset book. It's not specific to business. It does talk about real estate in it, but it the way it's written, it's kind of broken out into chapters over time, and it kind of gives you all these different um, caveats and lessons, weaving in a story with the author's own life experiences. But I've never read a book that has more great quotes in it than that book. It's just
Yeah.
filled with great quotes that's pulled from every other type of famous personal development or high achiever that throughout the course of history. It's like all of those quotes are in one book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really like that book. I think I listened to it twice, 2.5 times actually. So yeah, I recommend that one as well, folks. And the other one, The Comfort Crisis, I'll have to look that one up and I'll probably read it soon because that's kind of up my alley, what I'm resonating with on the book front. How do people, fantastic recommendations there, Brian. How do people get in contact with you and or get to know more about what you're doing?
Sure. So you can follow us on Instagram or message us there as well. It's at Green Springs Capital. Our website is greenspringscapitalgroup.com. And on there, there's links to investor portals and short-term rentals and our long-term rentals, et cetera. So if you have any interest in learning more about our company or just want to talk real estate, I'm always open for that as well. Or they can just send me an email directly. I've got no problem giving that out. It's Brian at greenspringscapitalgroup.com.
Awesome, man. And I will drop the links, of course, to the podcast notes. So if somebody listens to this, 6 months from now, like, hey, well, I live in New York or whatever, I want to invest in New York or be part of what David or Brian's doing, then they'll know. They'll find that. So anyway, so thank you for being such a great guest, sharing all these stories of wisdom and learning and knowledge and your path here. We thank the audience for listening to another episode of the Investing Stuff You Should Know podcast. Give it a like, a recommendation, share it with a friend. Until next time, Brian, hey, thanks, man.
Thanks, Johnny. Appreciate you having me.